The council chamber stood on the edge of collapse. Voices clashed like blades, accusations and fears filling the air. But as the shouting grew, the doors at the far end opened. And humanity entered. There was no army behind them. No fleet above their heads, only a single ambassador draped in the blue and silver of Earth. Their footsteps echoed, calm, steady, unshaken. The other delegates fell silent. For in that moment they felt it. Not power displayed in weapons, but power carried in silence. The human ambassador stepped into the center. Eyes that had seen both mercy and ruin swept across the chamber. When they spoke, the voice was quiet, but it carried like thunder through the hall. You ask why humanity avoids war, they said. And you twist our silence into weakness. But you are wrong. The delegates leaned forward, some trembling, some enraged. But none could look away. We do not avoid war because we cannot fight, the human continued. We avoid war because we have fought too many. Because our own world has been bathed in fire more times than you can imagine. Because we carry scars older than your empires. Images flickered across hidden screens. Ruined cities of Earth. Mushroom clouds, oceans filled with wreckage. Graves stretching to the horizon. The chamber shuddered with the weight of history. We know what war is, what it costs, and what it destroys, the ambassador said. Voice hardening. And so we choose restraint, not for your sake, but for our own. Because if we unleash what we keep buried, the galaxy itself will not survive. A delegate from the Keth leapt to his feet. Snarling, empty threats, nothing more. But the human's gaze pinned him where he stood, colder than steel. You call it a threat, the ambassador said. We call it memory. The silence that followed was unbearable. Every species in that chamber remembered the stories, the whispers, the rumors of humanity's endless wars. Now they realized those were not myths, but warnings. The human's voice softened. But the words were sharper than any blade. We do not seek conquest, we do not seek to rule. We seek only to endure. But understand this, if war is forced upon us, we will not stop, we will not break, and we will not forgive. We will fight until the stars themselves fall dark, and when the war is over, only humanity will remain. The chamber froze. Some delegates shivered in fear. Others clenched their fists in anger, but no one laughed, no one doubted. The human ambassador turned, their cloak brushing the floor as they walked back toward the doors. And before leaving, they spoke one final sentence, a whisper that would echo across the galaxy for generations. We avoid war out of mercy, but do not mistake mercy for weakness. And then they were gone, leaving. The galaxy had watched the Keth Dominion with smug expectation. They thought the humans would crumble, that the raids would break their will. Instead, it was the Keth who bled. Entire fleets vanished into the void. Shipyards burned before ships could rise. And every human strike came with the same dreadful precision. Now the whispers grew into storms, spreading across the stars, carrying fear to every world. In the great council chambers, voices rose in panic. Humans are too dangerous, one delegate cried. They cannot be trusted. They are merciful, another countered. They have not destroyed the Keth, only crippled them. But it was not mercy that frightened the council. It was restraint. For if humanity could deliver such devastation while holding back, what horror would follow if they unleashed their full strength? Merchants whispered of human convoys moving without escorts. Yet untouched, pirates who once stalked the trade lanes now vanished. Their ships found drifting, silent, their cargoes intact. It was as if the stars themselves had turned against those who hunted humanity. And still the humans said nothing. They expanded their colonies quietly. They traded with neighbors. They smiled with calm faces. But behind those smiles, the galaxy saw shadows. In Keth space, fear turned to chaos. Soldiers deserted, captains disobeyed orders. Whispers of human ghosts haunted their fleets. They spoke of human weapons that struck without warning. Human warriors who never missed. Human fleets that appeared and disappeared like phantoms. The truth was simpler yet more terrifying. Humans were not everywhere. They simply knew exactly where to strike. The elder races, those who had survived ancient wars, understood the pattern. This is not conquest, they murmured. This is discipline. And discipline was far more dangerous than fury. On neutral worlds, children played games of human hunters, pretending to vanish into shadows and strike with invisible blades. In the halls of power, rulers whispered in private, if the humans ever turn their gaze upon us, what chance would we have? An ancient archive was uncovered on a forgotten world. It spoke of humanity's past, of wars so vast they scorched continents and shattered skies, and the council trembled as they read. The humans had survived their own apocalypse more than once. A species that could endure such endings could endure anything, and anything that endures cannot be broken. Only feared still, the Keth raged. They demanded vengeance, demanded that the council unite against humanity. But few listened. For every leader who spoke of destroying the humans felt a cold dread gnawing at their heart. To strike at humanity was to gamble with survival itself, and most were unwilling to roll those dice. The galaxy had seen the hidden blade. Now they saw the silence that followed. And silence, when it belonged to humanity, was more terrifying than war itself. The Great Council gathered in secret. No recordings were allowed, no scribes permitted, and every delegate swore silence under oath. For the galaxy had reached a crossroads, and the question before them was simple yet terrifying. What should be done about humanity? The chamber was a vast dome, stars glittering above through transparent glass. Delegates from 100 species filled the tiers, their voices sharp, their fears sharper. The Keth roared for war. They strike us without mercy. They humiliate our fleets if we do not unite now. They will grow too powerful. But others shook their heads. You do not understand, hissed a scaled envoy. What you have seen was not their true power, it was restraint. Do you dare invite the storm they hold back? The arguments raged. Echoing like thunder, some spoke of preemptive war, of uniting fleets larger than the galaxy had ever seen. Others whispered of alliances, treaties, even submission, and yet none could ignore the truth. The humans had shown only a fraction of their hand. An elder of the Ashari, a species older than most stars, rose with trembling hands. Her voice carried across the dome, heavy with memory. I have seen what happens when humanity fights itself. Entire continents burned, skies poisoned, oceans turned to graveyards, and yet they survived, they endured. If they turned that fury outward, not one of us would endure them. The chamber fell silent. Even the Keth, loud in their fury, found no words, for in that moment, the delegates felt a chilling realization. Humanity did not need allies, did not need numbers, did not need mercy from others, they needed only time. And time was already theirs. Behind closed doors, smaller councils debated desperate plans. Could humanity be contained? Could their colonies be sabotaged? Their fleets crippled before they grew too strong. But every plan ended the same way, failure. For how do you break a species that has already survived its own destruction? Whispers spoke of spies sent into human space, ships that vanished without trace, agents who never returned, and among those who did return, their reports carried only dread. The humans know we watch them. They let us see only what they choose. We are playing their game, not ours. One delegate finally voiced what many feared to say aloud. If we fight them, we may not only lose, we may cease to exist. The council adjourned in chaos. The whispers about humanity had reached every corner of the galaxy. Some empires feared them, others dismissed them. But one small power, the Keth Dominion, chose not to whisper, but to act. The Keth were proud, cruel, and hungry for expansion. They looked at humanity's fragile colonies and saw easy prey. To them, the humans were cowards who hid behind words, and so they decided to deliver a lesson. It began with a raid. A human mining outpost, barely a decade old, was struck without warning. The Keth warships descended from the void, their cannons spitting fire. Homes were shattered, families fled into the dark, and the Keth laughed as human signals cried desperately for help. The galaxy watched, curious to see if this was the moment humanity would finally bare its teeth. But humanity did not roar, their fleets did not surge forward. Their armies did not march, instead they responded with silence. To the Keth, this was proof of weakness. To the council, it was strange, unsettling silence that seemed to stretch far too long. And in that silence, human eyes grew cold behind closed doors. Humanity did not weep, they planned. Their fleets did not charge blindly, they gathered. Their leaders did not shout with fury. They spoke quietly of strategy. For humans had learned across countless centuries that vengeance is sweetest when it comes not with rage. But with patience, the Keth struck again. Another colony, another outpost. Still humanity held back, still they whispered nothing. Alien commentators mocked them. See, they sneered, the humans are prey, not predators. But in dark corridors of human war councils, a different voice spoke. We will not strike yet, said one admiral. For they believe we are afraid, let them believe it. until it is too late. Among the Keth, prisoners were taken, captured miners, farmers, children, and yet within weeks the Keth began to notice something unsettling. Every prisoner stared at them with eyes that did not beg, with eyes that did not plead, but with eyes that remembered. Whispers spread among the guards. These humans, they said, they do not fear us. They're waiting. The galaxy leaned closer. Watching, would humanity finally rise, or would they endure humiliation forever? Then one day in the silence of deep space, a Keth scout ship intercepted a human transmission. It was short, cold, and terrifying. We have counted every wound. We have buried every dead. And when we answer, you will not see us coming. The scout ship's crew never reported again. Their ship was found drifting weeks later, silent, empty, its logs erased. The council grew restless. Something was moving in the dark. Something patient, something human. And as the whispers returned, heavier than before, the galaxy began to understand. The humans had not refused to fight, they were simply waiting. Waiting for the moment when their mercy ended. The Keth Dominion celebrated. Their fleets returned from raids with trophies and captives. Their leaders drank to victory, convinced humanity was nothing more than frightened prey. In their arrogance, they believed the humans had surrendered. That silence meant defeat, but silence was only the mask behind it. Humanity sharpened its hidden blade in shadowed war rooms. Maps of the Keth territories glowed across holographic tables. Every ship, every fleet movement, every vulnerable outpost was studied, recorded, memorized. No cry for vengeance escaped human lips. No threats were sent across the stars. Instead, their voices remained calm, their planning meticulous. For humanity had learned across centuries that war is not won by rage, but by patience, and patience was a weapon sharper than any blade. The first strike came without warning. A Keth fleet guarding a mineral world vanished in a burst of silence. Their distress signals never reached home. Their ships never returned. Scouts dispatched to investigate found nothing but drifting wreckage. It was too clean, too precise, as if every human shot had been calculated long before the battle even began. The galaxy trembled. This was not the wild fury they had expected, not the blind rage of a humiliated species. This was surgical devastation, executed with terrifying restraint, and for the first time, the whispers of humanity's true nature began to spread like wildfire. One Keth warlord stood before his council, furious. "They dare strike at us," he roared. "Then we will burn their colonies to ash." But even as his words echoed, reports arrived of another disaster, a shipyard gone silent. Its fleets destroyed before they could launch, no survivors, no mercy. Only the ghostly message left behind. "This is your lesson, not your destruction." The council chambers across the galaxy filled with fear. What kind of species delivered war like this? So cold, so measured, so deliberate. Most species fought with chaos, fire, and desperation. But humans fought like hunters, striking not where their enemy was strongest, but where they were blind and still. Humanity did not unleash their full power. They struck small, precise, enough to cripple, enough to warn. It was not conquest, not revenge, but a statement: we are not cowards, we are not weak. But if you force our hand, we will erase you piece by piece. In the darkness of the council chambers, the elder races whispered, "This is not even their full strength. They are holding back," and that thought terrified them more than the destruction itself. Among the Keth, fear spread like a plague. Captains refused to launch raids. Soldiers muttered in terror, and in every shadow, they felt the unseen eyes of humanity watching, waiting, ready to strike again. The hidden blade had... The galaxy was vast, endless, and filled with countless voices. Empires rose and empires fell. Fleets crossed the dark between suns, and still the stars whispered of something new. A new species had entered the galactic stage, a species called humanity. They came not with grand fleets, not with shining banners of conquest, but quietly, as explorers, as traders, as seekers of knowledge. At first, the other civilizations laughed. These humans looked fragile, their ships smaller, their colonies modest, their voices calm. In the council chambers of the galaxy, they were dismissed as children playing in the shadow of giants. Yet in the shadows of those chambers, whispers began to grow, whispers that would not fade. "Why?" the elder races asked. "Do humans avoid war?" The galaxy had been shaped by conflict. Every empire had carved its place with fire and steel. War was the language of power, the test of survival. But the humans did not speak it. They bowed when insulted, they retreated when provoked. They chose silence where others would roar. And this silence unnerved the galaxy more than any weapon could. Some said it was weakness, that humans lacked the courage to fight, that they hid behind diplomacy because they feared the battlefield. But the oldest voices, the ones who remembered forgotten wars, shook their heads. They had seen something in the human eyes, something unsettling. It was not fear, it was memory. Across council halls and star stations, the stories spread of how humans once fought wars so vast that their own planet burned, of how they slaughtered each other with weapons that turned skies black and seas red, of how they rebuilt again and again, never vanishing, never breaking. The galaxy realized that humanity did not avoid war because they were weak. They avoided it because they knew it too well. Still, the young empires did not listen. They mocked the humans openly, called them cowards, called them soft, called them prey. But in secret meetings, admirals and warlords warned their councils, if they fight, if humans are ever forced into war, then the stars themselves will bleed. One such admiral, scarred and older than most living creatures, rose during a heated debate. He slammed his clawed hand against the table, shaking the chamber. You fools, he growled. You do not understand. They are not avoiding war because they fear it. They are avoiding war because they remember it, because they were forged in it, and because if they unleash it again, not one of our worlds will survive. The chamber fell silent. For the first time, the empires of the galaxy felt a chill. They had laughed at humanity, but the laughter no longer came easily. The whispers grew louder, crawling through the stars like a shadow, and in every whisper was the same warning. Humans avoid war not out of weakness but out of mercy, and yet, in the darkness beyond the council chambers, in hidden corners of the galaxy, there were those who wondered, what would happen if humanity's mercy ended? The council chambers had fallen quiet after the admiral's warning. Yet beyond those polished walls of politics, stories traveled faster than light. Stories of Earth, the home of humanity, a world where peace was not a gift but a fragile miracle, and those stories carried weight, heavy enough to make even ancient empires pause. Long before humans reached the stars, they had waged wars against themselves. Not once, not twice, but countless times. Kingdoms clashed over land, nations tore each other apart over power, and entire peoples vanished in the fires of conquest. The galaxy had fought wars, yes, but nothing compared to the cruelty and brilliance of humanity's endless battles. Their history was a graveyard of empires. Rome rose with iron legions, then crumbled to dust. Mongol riders thundered across continents, leaving ashes in their wake, then disappeared into silence. Industrial nations drowned the world in smoke and fire, unleashing machines of death beyond imagination. And still, humanity endured. Every time they fell, they rose again. Harder, stronger, more relentless. Other species fought wars of territory, but humans fought wars of annihilation. They built weapons that could scorch entire cities in a heartbeat. They poisoned skies, shattered worlds of their own making. And yet from every ruin they clawed their way back. To them, war was not a trial, it was their inheritance. This was the truth the galaxy whispered about in hushed tones, that humanity did not avoid war out of fear. They avoided it because they carried its memory in their blood. Every soldier, every child, every farmer bore the weight of generations who had known hunger, fire, and despair, and that weight made them dangerous. For what is more terrifying than a species that has already survived the end of the world? More than once, the archives of Earth spoke of 2 great wars fought in a single century. The first left millions dead. The second left tens of millions buried under ruins and ashes. And at the end of it, humanity split the atom. They held the fire of the stars in their hands. They unleashed it not once but twice, turning cities into smoke, and yet they still did not vanish. To other species, this was unthinkable. One war of such scale would have broken their civilizations forever. But for humans, it was only another scar, another lesson written in blood. When they finally stepped into the stars, they carried this history like a hidden blade, unseen but always ready. The young empires still mocked them, still called them cowards for refusing battle, but the wise ones knew. If humans ever turned back to war, if they ever unleashed the fury they once poured upon themselves, then no fleet, no empire, no council would be enough to stop them. And in that silence, the galaxy began to wonder, if this fragile-looking species avoided war for so long, how much longer could mercy truly hold them back?